Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today, we have a fun one. Today is Checkride talk. Today we're going to talk about, I don't yet know what I'll call this video because I don't know which direction the video will go in. But the direction it will for sure go in are talking about some ways that you could impress your DPE. Some ways that you could actually stand out on your Checkride. Some ways that your DPE will walk away from that flight and think to themselves, wow, this pilot is not only doing everything right, but gave me that extra little stuff that maybe isn't written anywhere. And that leaves the DPE feeling like, I like this person. I could trust this person. This person is serious about what it is we're doing here. And it could really earn you a lot of brownie points on your Checkride. I'm saying this because I've seen it. I'm saying this because I've done it myself. I'm saying this because I received good feedback with it. And it just shows well. It really, really shows well. So since I'm using the words or the term shows well, let's start there. And let's talk for a brief second. What is a Checkride? Really, what are we doing here? Let's understand what a Checkride is, because I want to make sure that the reason I'm bringing these things up in a moment, I have a list of 5 things, 5 easy things, which I'll get into. They're so easy and simple to do that they are as easy and simple to miss. Okay? So when I get into talking about these things, I want you to write them down and really make sure you start adding them and doing them. And by the way, I'll start with this. Everything I'm going to talk about in this video, yes, it will make you look better. Yes, it will make you stand out. Yes, it will earn you brownie points with your DPE. But these shouldn't only be Checkride stuff that you do. These should be things that if you have been doing them, excellent. Keep doing them for the rest of your life. If you haven't been doing them, excellent. Start doing them today. Make sure you do them on your Checkride and continue to do them for the rest of your life. I want to make it clear, this video is not about let's pretend to be great on the Checkride and then I'll go back to bad habits. These are things that are great safe pilot habits, which also happen to show really well on Checkrides and will make you stand out, which I think every single one of us wants that. So keep that in mind as I talk about these things. Yes, I'm talking about it in the context of Checkrides, but really I'm talking about it in the context of just being a safe pilot. If you've watched my videos for any period of time, you know I'm huge on good habits, right? Great habits. I always say great pilots are made up of great habits. That's pretty much what it comes down to. We could all pretend to be something on a Checkride. We could all put on a show in a job interview. But it's really how you operate. It's who you are that over time is exposed. And so I want to make sure that you're not only going to be this Checkride safe pilot, you're going to be a safe pilot, period, which by doing that will yield a lot of goodness for you on your Checkride and will make you stand out. Now, I'm not telling you that if you do these things, you will pass your Checkride. There's a lot more to a Checkride than these 5 things. What I am saying is that these 5 things are small little things. Again, like I said before, they're so simple and easy to not do, which by the way, that's why that's why a lot of people miss them and definitely miss some of the 5. And when you do them on your Checkride, and your DPE looks at you and thinks that they'll think to themselves, wow, that's cool. That's a nice little touch. That shows me that they're not behind the airplane or nervous to a point where they're now forgetting to just be a good, safe pilot. And I'll talk about these things and you'll see exactly what I mean. But let's start out with what is a Checkride? What is a Checkride? So a moment ago, I used the term showing, right? It shows well. That's what I used. And if you're in real estate, a big part of your job, if you're an agent or a broker, whatever the proper name is, what you do is you do a lot of showings for clients, right? There's open house. You're showing things, okay? You're selling. you're selling. An open house is basically you're showing something that you want to sell to the public. So let me ask you this. How important is it, or how important would it be to make sure that the showing shows well? What would you say? How important is it to the whole process of selling a house? Now, some might say the showing's not all that important. It's about what the house actually is made of or looks like, or the condition of the actual home, right? That's what's important. That's what the client's going to live with for the rest of their life. And you wouldn't be wrong. That's also very important. But what I'm specifically talking about here and what I want to focus on is the selling process of the home. How important is it to make sure that the showing shows well and that the house is presentable during the open house when the public is coming by to look at this house and to figure out whether or not they want to buy it? It's extremely important. It's the first impression that people have with this house. And often it's the last impression, right? It's not like they're coming by every Tuesday to see the house and eat dinner there and hang out on the patio and barbecue and get a feel for the home for about a year. And then at the end of that, they decide if they want to buy it. It's the kind of like the first and last impression. So people in real estate understand this, and really all salespeople, that first impression, the showing, exposing that thing to you that I wish to sell you is extremely important, and a lot of attention and detail needs to be devoted to it, which is why when it comes to checkrides, there's lots of videos online, which I'm sure you watched, how to present yourself in a checkride. Like people have their checkride binders and you show up and you have the money laid out on the table, because checkrides, just like a house, part of what we're doing on the checkride, like it or not, I'm just speaking facts and reality here. I'm not giving my opinion whether I think it's right or wrong or I like it. The reality is part of what you're doing on your checkride is you're almost selling yourself. And I'll explain to you why that reality exists. The reality exists that you're selling yourself on your checkride is precisely because the system is made up in such a way where that DPE, the examiner, they don't know you. They've never flown with you. They've never seen you in your plane. They know nothing about you, unlike your flight instructor, right, who would sign off a month ago. Yeah, they're good to go. This DPE knows nothing. So if you think about it, this DPE is that potential buyer of the home who knows nothing about the home walking into the open house. And you are selling that house. And it's up to you how you wish to show the house. Does it show well? Does it show less good? And that's completely in your hands, okay? It's completely in your hands, just as much as a house showing is completely in the real estate agent's hand, right? They could make sure this house is looking great when people show up at Saturday at 11, or they could care a little less about it and the house will show less good. And again, that's the impression that will be given to those who show up. So on your check ride, just to make sense of really what a check ride is, the reality is part of what you're doing on your check ride is you're selling yourself. You're a salesperson. And again, I don't want to make this sound like something it's not. It's not like you're a salesperson like, hey, I'm here to just sell my soul to the devil. No, but part of what you're doing is you're looking just like the real estate agent. Part of your goal on the check ride is how could I make my DPE walk away from our experience together feeling good about me, as opposed to kind of questioning whether or not I'm ready to be a pilot. Right? The real estate agent is asking the same question. How could I have my potential clients walk away from this open house feeling good about the house, feeling confident about the house, feeling good and confident and secured and assured in the event that they want to purchase the house? How do I get them to make sure that they feel that they're actually spending good money here and when they buy the house? That's the goal, right? So when you show up to your check ride, how could you make the DPE have all these great feelings? That's part of your job. That's part of your job. And part of your instructor's job to kind of keep that on the table and make sure that you remember that. Because flying a good airplane is great. Having that house be in excellent condition is great. But how much does that help with the showing during the open house? Right? A house that's in great condition could not show that well if I don't care to make it show well. Just like a house in a bad condition could show well. Obviously, DPEs do it for a living, and if there's really no foundation or a rocky foundation, it will become very apparent within a few minutes of getting into the airplane, or at least within the first 30 minutes. But the reality is that part of what we're doing on the Checkride is we are selling ourselves. It's your open house, and the DPE is showing up to your open house, and they need to walk away with a certain good feeling in order to print out and give you that certificate. So the reason I want to start with this, or the reason I started with this, is because I don't know what type of training you're receiving. I don't know what your instructor is telling you or not telling you about check rides. And if you knew this all along, excellent. But part of what I want you to know is that, yes, you want to fly a good airplane on your check ride. Yes, you want to know your stuff. Everything is true. Absolutely. The check ride is, you're showing this examiner in a period of about a few hours. I don't know, however long it takes for your examiner to conduct their check ride. You're showing them that you do have the skills, the ability to make decisions, the ability to control the airplane. All that's true. But through that process, you're selling yourself in the sense that the DPE will walk away and will feel one of two feelings: good about you or not so good about you. And that's the reality of things. So the idea of this video, I've been thinking, what are some things that people could actually do on the check ride? And again, these things have to be simple, because if you have a check ride next week, if these things would be too complicated, there's this, I forget what the saying is. I think it's something along the lines of no new socks on race day with marathons or whatever it might be. I don't want you changing things up so close to your check ride. But these are so simple. So if your check ride's a month away, start adding these things into your flights now. Every time you go flying with your instructor, heck, every time you go solo on your own, do these things and hold yourself to these things. And it will quickly become a habit. The more you do something, the more it becomes a habit. And these things there's 5 things, will make your check ride open house day show very well. And again, there's a million things that you could do to show well, but these 5 things are so simple. They cost nothing. They take about a fraction of a second, but it really hits home with DPEs, and it goes a very long way as far as that feeling they have about you walking away. I've spoken with enough DPEs to where it's these small things, right? There's all these sayings in relationships. I've heard someone say once, he's like a dating coach or a relationship coach or something like that. And he said that the things that make or break relationships are not the big stuff. It's not remembering your spouse's anniversary, because how do you forget that? That's the elephant in the room. So how special of a person you are if you remember the anniversary. Who could miss it, right? So it's not the big things that make or break a relationship, but it's the small little tiny things over time that make relationships great. And the reason it's the small things, he was saying, that make relationships great is because, just like I said in the beginning, as easy as it is to do them, that's exactly how easy it is to miss them. And that's why these small things over time, they build and they build and they make all the difference. So DPEs, if you talk with DPEs, making sure you land with your flaps in, that won't really earn you points on your check ride, because it's the elephant in the room. How do you miss it, right? Like who misses that? Or making sure that you maintain VY on your climb out after takeoff. It's the elephant in the room. But doing these 5 things I'm going to talk about, these are not the elephant in the room. These are more subtle, small things. And it's the small things that make check rides great and that leave your DPE feeling with, whoa, this person's ready to take on this challenge and ready to really start learning, because the real learning, I'm sure you've heard this, happens after you get your certificate and you're out there in the real world making decisions for yourself, and you're encountering situations and circumstances and weather and whatever it might be that really teaches you more than anything. And that's what the DPE is looking for. They're looking to see, are you ready to embark on this true learning journey, or not. Some people are not. Some people need more time in the plane, more time with an instructor, more time to study before the DPE feels like they're ready for that. So these 5 things we're going to talk about are subtle, small things that make big, giant differences. It leaves a good impression. It shows well. Make sure you make your open house on the Checkride show really, really, really well, just like a real estate agent. And if you're in real estate, getting your license, which a lot of people are, this will resonate with you. And you'll have an easy time understanding, oh, I've done 1 million open houses in my life. I know how to make that happen. So now today I'm making it happen with me. I'm the open house. I'm the open house. My knowledge, the way I conduct myself, my risk management, my skills, all these things are the home that I'm showing. I want to make sure I show it well. And like we said before, check rides are made up or broken, however you want to word it, by the small little tiny things, not by the big things, because the big things are the elephant in the room. How do you forget them? No one forgets them. But the small things, many people forget. And so these DPEs who do these check rides all day long, things that most people forget, guess how excited they become when they see all of a sudden someone out there who doesn't forget these things. They go, oh, thank you. Finally, someone is doing it, right? And it goes a really long way. You'd be amazed. So here we go. Let's jump into the 5 things. I want you to write these 5 things down. And again, like I said before, there's 1 million things. Okay, but these are 5 things that you could do on every single flight, and you should do on every single flight, even to the last flight you ever fly. But it really goes a long way, and it will earn you points on your check ride. And that's really my goal. My goal is to make sure that you are aware that it A, is an open house, B, that it's in your full control to make sure it shows well or better or worse. It's in your control. It's not in your instructor's control. It's in your control. And if you haven't heard these things or been doing these things, or your instructor wasn't holding you to these standards, hold yourself to these standards after this video. It will make a big, big difference. And it's quick. It will take not a long time to make these things a habit. You'll be amazed. So here we go. And I wrote them, and I will talk about them in order. So what I mean is, if one of these things has to do with taxi, I'll start with that. If then one of these things has to be with takeoff, I'll continue with that. And then one of these things has to do with in the air while flying, I'll continue with that. So I'm kind of going in order that a flight would take place, just to kind of make it easy on your brain. So the first thing that I wrote down in the 5 things that you could do that will really, really leave a good impression with your DPE is this: interpret your taxi instructions on your taxi chart before you release the brakes and start moving the airplane. I'll say that again. Interpret. What does interpret mean? Out loud, make sure you understand the taxi instruction ground gave you. Again, if you're operating at a towered airport, before you start moving the airplane. And this will mean the given here is a few things. One, I'll have to have a taxi chart up in order to properly interpret something. Otherwise, I can't interpret it. So you make sure your taxi chart is up and you get taxi instructions. It takes a split of a second, but you'd be amazed how nice it shows. It shows professionalism. It shows that even though this is my home airport, I don't just leave it all to memory and go like a monkey, because one day they might give me a different taxi instruction. So you get the taxi. There's sirens. I want to make sure you hear me and fully get me. This would be a good time for coffee. What this means is that even though this is your home airport, right? You don't just repeat it like a monkey and then go without verifying and looking at anything. And the reason is this. The reason interpreting your taxi instruction before releasing the brakes and moving is to cement that and make it a habit, so that the day you find yourself in Minneapolis or in New York or at a different airport that's not home airport, you do it habitually. You get a taxi instruction, you verify that the route makes sense to you, you fully understand where you're going to taxi, and only then you begin your taxi. So again, how long does it take? Imagine your home airport, the taxi instruction. It's probably a small airport, class Delta. Taxi instruction most likely will just be made up of 1 or 2 taxiways. Quick. You have your taxi chart up. Ground gives you taxi instructions. Hold your taxi. Look at the taxi chart and go, okay, they told me boom, Charlie, Alpha, Juliet. Or they told me run up via Sierra. There's Sierra. Boom. Excellent. The moment it makes sense, then release the brakes, start taxiing, and then reference your taxi chart to make sure you're actually taxiing on the correct taxi route that you were told. There's so much more that you could add to it, right? I'll leave it at this for this one. There's a lot that you could add to it. Even though you're referencing your taxi chart, you could loudly point out, yep, there's a sign. You could start pointing to the signs and go, yep, okay, there's a sign. There's Alpha. I'm going to turn right. You could turn this into as intense and in-depth as you wish. But my point here is this. When the DP is sitting next to you, and again, this is something that you should do for life, but specifically we're focused on check rides. When the DP sits next to you and you get a taxi instruction, and before you start moving the airplane, you take those 2 seconds, maybe even a second, and you look at your chart and you make sure that the route makes sense to you before you release the brakes. How do you think that shows to the DPE? What message do you think that leaves your DPE? Do you think it leaves your DPE a message of, oh, they told you to taxi and now you're taking 2 seconds and oh, now you're holding everyone up? Or do you think it leaves the message with them of, whoa, this person understands the importance of, they know the possibility of confirmation bias. They understand the importance of, they know that unless that route makes sense to them on their chart, there's no way in the world it would make sense to them in real life. That's the message that the DPE gets. And when they get that message, guess what feeling it leaves inside? Now we're dealing with someone who's serious about this. We're dealing with someone who knows what's going on, who's aware of the importance and of the safety that comes along with verifying your taxi route. Just make sure it makes sense on paper. If it doesn't make sense on paper, how in the world will it make sense in real life without even verifying and knowing where you're going? It's like building a house. Imagine you start building a house. No drawings, no paper, no plan. Just start building a house, right? Something might come out, but it might look weird and not be strong, and the foundation will be messed up, right? Start building the house the moment the drawings are complete. Start moving the airplane the moment the taxi instructions are completed in your head. You've interpreted them. You understand what's expected of you. Now go execute. That is a small little thing, and it's so small and simple that it's equally easy and small and simple to miss, which is why many people miss it. Many people get their instructions, especially at their home airport. Start taxiing. I know you know the route at your home airport. That's not why we're telling you to do this. Your home airport, you could draw out of memory. It's amazing. But that one day, you'll find yourself in Florida visiting a friend, and it's a busy class Charlie, and your habit is to just get the instruction and start moving. And then you find yourself in a pickle. So make this a habit. And by showing up to your check ride with this habit, lots of sirens today. By showing up to your check ride with this habit, it shows in a very, very good way, and will earn you a lot of points on your check ride with DPE. So again, number one is interpret the taxi instructions before you start moving the airplane. Simple. It takes 2 seconds, but it really goes a long way. So keep that one in mind. All right. Number 2, and this again is going in the order of taxiing. Once you do start taxiing the airplane, again, depending on your airport, there'll probably be some turns that you'll do. You'll taxi down this taxiway, then you'll make a left, whatever it might be. Here's another small but powerful habit, which goes a long way. It shows really well. All these things show professionalism. It shows engagement. It shows situational awareness. It shows that I'm aware of my surrounding. All these things are so important as a pilot, and it really goes a long way. The next one is this. Clear the area left and or right. And what I mean by that is this. If you're taxiing and you're about to make a right turn, don't just go and make the right turn. Before you reach the intersection, look to your left and out loud say, we're clear left. Look to your right, we're clear right. Or you could just say, okay, we're clear on both sides, and then make that right turn. You could use whatever words you want, but the point is this. Out loud, verbally, make sure that you're not only looking, but you're also saying, you're acknowledging, okay, we're clear. And here's the reason this is important on your Checkride specifically, and I tell this to my students all the time. You could be the best pilot on the planet. You could have the best habits. You could be doing everything right. But if you don't say it out loud, if you don't tell me you're doing it, what are the chances you think of me knowing that you're doing it? I can't read your mind. I can't. Especially a DPE who doesn't know you. They've never flown with you. They don't know you've been doing this all the time, right? Many people say, oh man, I do it all the time, but I forgot on my Checkride. That's all the DPE gets. They get a window in time with you. They don't get more. It's game day. Back to the real estate, the open house. It's all the potential buyer gets. They just get this small little window in time, right? Oh, what if you tell the client, the buyer, you say, I promised last week the house looked really good. They don't care. We're here now. I'm here now. I want to make sure the house looks good. That's exactly what how the DPE approaches it. They trust that things have been looking good for the past, I don't know how long. Otherwise, your instructor wouldn't sign you off and recommend you. But all they have to see and go off of is here and now. It's our open house, which is why I want to drive that point home. It's our open house. So if you don't say something you're doing out loud, it doesn't mean you're not doing it. It doesn't mean you're a bad pilot. It doesn't mean any of that. All it means is that if you don't say it, the DPE doesn't know you did it because they can't read your mind. So now in training, if you could get one of the things I make sure my students understand is that if they don't say it, I don't know they did it. And I want to know they did it because I want the DPE to know they did it. And so in training, I make it a habit. I know you're looking into making sure that it's clear. Just say it out loud. You say it out loud. Now in my head, I go, this guy's looking. This guy's aware. This guy cares. This guy's on top of things. This guy's aware of their surroundings. Okay? That's the feeling it leaves me. That's the feeling it leaves your DPE with. So say it out loud. Don't just think it. Don't just do it. Say it out loud. That's why it's important. So clear the area. Anytime you begin taxiing, clear the area. You show up to a run-up, if you could remember to look behind you before you get that engine power up, even though you're in the run-up and there's just bushes behind you. Again, it shows of good situational awareness. So clear the area. You show up to taxi, we're clear on the left, clear on the right. Make that right turn. You show up to another turn, we're clear on the left, clear on the right, clear on the left, clear on the right. We're clear. There's no one around us. We're good. Make it a habit. You'd be amazed. The DPE will sit there and go, I like this. So many people just taxi. Don't even look. They're so focused. They're so like, it's my Checkride. If you make this a habit, Checkride's just another day, right? Race day is just another day. Obviously, there's a little bit of Checkride nerves, which is healthy. It makes you human. It shows that you care. You're not a robot. Checkride nerves are an excellent thing, even for performance. Obviously, it's like a curb. At some point, it starts working against you, but Checkride nerves are great. But it's just another day, right? It's the only difference is the DP is your first passenger. That's it. That's the only difference. But it should be just another day. So if you've been doing these things during training, these small little habits, I clear the area. I'm about to turn right. I make sure I'm clear on both sides, right? It goes a really, really long way. Really, really long way. So this has to do with taxiing. Okay, so when you taxi, clear right, clear left, goes a long way. It shows that you're looking. Number 3 ties into this, but it actually has to do with in the air, takeoff, and coming into land. So you could think of 2 and 3 as the same, but I separated them because I want to drive this thing home. Some people are good on the ground, and then in the air, they have a plane to control. It goes out the window, and they don't do it. So that's why I separated it. Number 3 is this. Ensure, and again, I'm talking about when we're taking the runway, but I'm also referring to when we're on base coming to turn final, okay? Both instances, I want you to do this. Ensure final is clear. Look and say it out loud. Again, back to the whole, if you don't say it, I don't know you're doing it. Okay? I can't read your mind. The DPE can't read your mind. No one could read your mind. Maybe technology someday will reach a point where where you show up to a check ride and the DPE wears a helmet, and then the DPE closes their eyes and they're able to download all your knowledge, and then like they take it off and then that's your oral. Maybe we'll reach such a day. But until that day shows up, you have to speak. You have to let the DPE know what you know, and you have to let the DPE know what you're doing, because if you don't say it out loud, they don't know you're doing it. So I want to stress that. Again, many people miss that. They go, I know I'm doing it. Don't worry about it. You can't be silent about it, because if you're silent about it, the DPE has a choice. They could choose to think you did it, or they could choose to think that what? You didn't do it. Because how do they know? They don't know you did it. So get into the habit of saying things out loud. Okay, when it comes to the runway, let's start with taking the runway. I'm showing up to take the runway. I want your head looking in the opposite direction of the runway before you touch the runway. As you start moving on your roll to take the runway, look towards the final approach course. Visually make sense. Final is clear. If you want to take it up a notch and really make it pretty, say, okay, we're clear outside, and then point to your screen and say we're also clear inside, meaning I don't see any traffic visually and I don't see any traffic on my screen that is on final. And here's the thing. Many of you watching this might go, well, what do you mean? Tower just cleared you for takeoff. Why would you have traffic on final? Well, if you spend enough time in this industry called flying and airplanes, you'll find, and I'm about to say sadly, but it's not sadly, it's just humanly, we're humans. Just as much as you, the pilot, are human, you might bust airspace someday. Not because you're a bad pilot, because you're human. Controllers are also human. They might clear you for takeoff when there's traffic on final. Not because they're a bad controller, but because they're human. And that's why part of what we need to remember as pilots is to do what we call trust but verify. I trust what the controller tells me. I follow their instructions. I know the rules, but I verify. Nowhere does it say I can't double check a controller's work. Nowhere. Show me one FAR that says that. Doesn't exist. I could double, triple check that whatever a controller tells me to do indeed is safe, that I won't hit another plane. And I have resources to do that. I could check my screen. I could look for traffic. I could use my eyes out the window and make sure final is clear. There's many different verifications I could do to make sure that what the controller just told me to do indeed won't end in an unfortunate situation. And that's how you should operate. Trust but verify. Trust but verify. 99.9% of the time, the verification you do will actually check with what the controller just told you to do. In other words, it will be safe, it will be great. They know exactly what they're doing. But it's that 0.1%. You don't want to give it a chance. So get into the habit of trust but verify. And this falls exactly into that. So you're cleared for takeoff. Look to the final approach course visually and go, final is clear. Again, say it out loud. If you don't say it out loud, the DPE doesn't know you're doing it. Now, you might go, oh, but I'm looking. They should see me. Well, what if your DPE is looking too? What if your DPE is looking too? Because guess what their habit is? Their habit is to check the final's clear. So their head is not looking at you. Their head is looking in the opposite direction. The only time they would look at you is if final is off the left side. They could turn left and then see you looking left. But don't count on that. Just get into the habit of saying it out loud. Final's clear. Excellent. Small, tiny thing, again, so easy to do, so easy to miss. So simple to do, so simple to miss, which is why many people miss it. Make it a habit. Final's clear. And I'll remind you, yes, we're talking about check rides, but do this for the rest of your life. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal habit. Okay? Final's clear. That's when we take the runway. The next time that this ties in the same way that I want you to get into the habit of doing, which many people don't do. Many people get the whole final clear when they take the runway, but then once they're in the air, it's just airplane. I'm not thinking about anything but flying this airplane. That's not so good. You're a little too zoomed in on the operation. You got to take a little breath and step back, and also make sure you're not potentially hitting anything while you're operating your plane. So if that's you, if you've just been so focused on the airplane while flying it, figure out a way where you could kind of relax, take a step back, and start devoting your attention, right? We don't only want to learn how to walk, we also want to learn how to walk while not hitting walls. So if you're at the walking point and you're still hitting walls or just so focused on the walking that you're not aware of your surroundings, take that home with what I'm saying here and maybe make it a point to try and work on that. So consciously go, okay, I'm aware of myself. I'm a little too deep in the mud here. I need to back out a little bit. And what I want you to do here is when you're on base, before you begin your turn to final, and the reason is if you're in a low wing plane and you begin your turn to final, guess how good you could see final through your whole wing. Not really. You got your whole wing right up blocking final. So it defeats the purpose. While you're straight on base, you got good visibility to final, assuming you're turning left. If you're turning right, you got good visibility to final. While your wings are straight, I want you to look whatever side final is on, and I want you to say out loud, okay, final looks clear. And then begin your turn to final. Again, so simple to do, just as simple to miss. But if you do that, again, guess what the DPE feels in their stomach? Do you think they're sitting there going, this guy just doesn't stop talking? Or do you think they sit there going, wow, this person is aware that there's potential traffic that could be coming into that same runway, and they don't want to take the chance. They're double checking. Their risk management is nicely managed, and they're actually making sure that final is clear. Oh boy, it earns you lots of points on your check ride. Lots of points. But again, as easy as it is to do, equally easily missed. I'll say this again. Great relationships are made or break. I want to say made or break. What makes relationships great is not, like I said before, is not the big things. They're not the elephants in the room, okay? It's the small, tiny little things. And everything we're talking about here, they're small, tiny little things. Which, by the way, if you didn't do these things, would you fail your check ride? I don't know. I think it would be an interesting debate. Should you fail your check ride for not doing these things? I would say, again, depends on your overall performance. I don't know if these are failable things. That's how small and simple these things are. But again, that's the whole point. Your check ride is made up of all these small little tiny things. It's these little extra stuff that leave your DPE feeling, this person is serious. This person is safe. This person is not taking any extra chances when it comes to this airplane gig. So keep that in mind. These things are simple, but that's how big of an impression they leave. As simple as they are, that's how big of an impression they leave. They leave a huge, huge impression. So final is clear. When you take the runway, final is clear. And when before you turn from base to final, while your wings are level. Now, if you're in a high wing airplane, you could still see final after you turned, but just make it a habit. Wings level, I haven't started turning yet. Final's clear. Then begin your turn. Again, it just shows good situational awareness, a good understanding. It shows that you understand that the controller could potentially not be perfect. And guess what? They're not. And potentially have you clear you to land or tell you base turn approved while there's traffic that's coming in to land as well. So we trust but verify. So that will be number 3. Number 4 has to do now with en route. So now we left the traffic pattern area. Everything we talked about so far has to do with airport and traffic pattern. So number 4, I'll take a quick sip of coffee. Oh, yeah, it's good. Number 4 has to do with en route. So you could be in the airport environment, you could be en route, whatever it might be. Just this is true throughout your check ride. That is number 4. Don't, and this is assuming you're flying a glass cockpit or even a 430, anything that shows you traffic, even your iPad, whatever it might be. This has to do with traffic. Don't clear the traffic alert until the traffic is in sight. Okay, and I'll say it again. Don't clear the traffic alert until the traffic is in sight. So often we get into habits, so many people get into habits where they fly along. I've seen so many people do this. They fly along, traffic alert on their screen. Out of habit, boom, clear it. Some, after clearing it, bother to look for the traffic. But many don't even bother to look for it, just clear it. Okay. So, but what's the issue with clearing it and then looking for traffic? The moment you clear it, your screen is no longer showing you where that traffic is in reference to you. You cleared it, it's gone. So now you're thinking, was it there or was it there? And you don't know where to look and you're lost. And by that time, the traffic, again, might be scraping your tail or might be further away to where you won't see them. So this is a very important habit, but doing this right in the right order goes a very long way in showing that you're a safe pilot who understands how to use the system. So it goes like this. You're flying along, traffic alert. You look at the screen and you see where that traffic is in reference to you. So let's say it's at your 3 o'clock. You don't touch anything. You look to your 3 o'clock and you start trying to locate the traffic visually. And you don't stop locating the traffic until you locate the traffic. And you look and you look. Oh, there's the traffic. You point to it. There it is. Traffic no factor. Use whatever words you want. Only then back to your screen. Acknowledge it depending on the system you have. You might need to acknowledge it. Then you could delete it or clear it. Sometimes you just clear it, whatever it might be. Only once the traffic is in sight, I want you to go ahead and clear that message out. In other words, the sequence is this. It brought something to your attention. You looked out and verified it's no factor. We dealt with the threat. And only then do I clear the message that told me about the threat in the first place. Does this make sense? The sequence, the order here? It's a little, if you start thinking of it this way, it gets a little funny when the system tells me of a threat and I just clear the threat. But I don't actually make sure the threat is not a factor. It's a little funny, that sequence. So you get a little traffic alert, locate the traffic, clear the threat, clear the message. Now, I know what you're thinking. You might be sitting there going, well, Yoel, I won't be able to locate the traffic every single time, right? And that's true. I don't see every traffic alert I get every single time. Sometimes they're too far from me or they're going in a direction that I can't really see, or maybe it's hazy or not hazy or to this or to that. Sometimes we just can't see them. So here's the exception. I want you to always do what I just said. You get a message, locate the traffic, no threat, no factor, clear the message. Now, the only time I want you to clear the message while not having laid eyes on the traffic outside your window is when you recognize, A, you tried, but you also recognize, okay, this is the time where no matter how much longer I keep looking out that window, that traffic is gone. I won't be able to find that. So you understand that in your head. You could also confirm on the screen, the traffic is continuing away from me, they're below me or they're above me. And once you ran through that, that's the second best thing we could do. So we ensured they're no factor through a means that is maybe a little less, what's the word? A little less perfect, right? We proved it a little less perfectly because we didn't lay eyes on them outside the window, but it's the second best we could do. And if you can't do the best, do the second best as opposed to nothing at all. So the only time I want you to clear that message with the traffic without having laid eyes on them out the window is if you recognize, okay, I'm not going to lay eyes on them. So make sure there's no threat, no factor on the screen, and then clear the traffic and continue on. So again, this is a simple thing. It happens to all of us every flight. We get traffic alerts all the time, but it's how we handle them. It's the intentionality behind how do I go about as a pilot handling a traffic alert. You know, at the airlines, when you get traffic alerts, there's very specific language written out in their operating procedures as to how to handle it. At night, what does the pilot monitoring do? Do we turn the lights on? Do we not? This type of alert. What do we do with that type of alert? There's very specific language as to how to handle traffic alerts. With general aviation, not so much. So make it a standard, a personal standard for yourself. If I get a traffic alert, I know exactly how to handle it, what to do, and when do I clear that message? Well, I clear the message only after I laid eyes on it and I visually verified they're no factor. In the one-off chance that I can't, which by the way, you won't be able to lay eyes every single time on traffic alerts, clear it only once you did your best on your screen to make sure, yep, they're flying away from me or they're no longer a factor. While doing all this, say it out loud what you're doing. And your DPE will sit there and go, yeah, I like this person. I feel safe flying with this person. This person gets it. This person gets it. I'm sure you've heard this. Maybe you haven't heard it, but there's a decade-old saying that the feeling DPEs want to feel, the question DPEs ask themselves at the end of a check ride when they're trying to figure out whether or not to give you that certificate, is a simple question, really, and it ties into exactly what we're talking about. And the question is, they ask themselves, would I put my family, my children, my wife, my husband, whatever it is, would I put people who I care deeply about on an airplane with this pilot? Would I trust that they will arrive safely? And there's one or two options. The answer of that DPE might be yes, or it might be no. Those are the only two options. And so our goal is to make sure, what could we do throughout that check ride so that that answer at the end of the check ride of that DPE is, yes, I would trust this person to fly my children someplace. Now, they probably wouldn't put their kids on a plane with you, and don't get offended. You just got your license. You're a brand new pilot. They might be whatever it might be. But generally speaking, that's the general feeling they're going for. Would I trust this person with people I care about, with their lives in their hand? Either a yes or a no. So all these things we're talking about, keep this in mind. These are things that go a long way. They earn you great points on your check ride to leave the DPE with a sense of, this person is serious. They're aware of what's going on. They handle things the right way, in the right order. And their habits are solid, because it's good habits that save lives more than pretty much anything else. It's good habits that save lives. So the DP will walk away with that feeling, and that's really what you're shooting for. So traffic alert, look out, no factor, clear the alert. That's the order. It takes 2 seconds, but it goes a long way. And then speak it out loud while you do it, so the DPE knows exactly what you're doing. Speaking things out loud is probably your best friend on your check ride. Just by the way, not to get off topic, but I know we're talking about how to leave a good impression. Because again, if you don't say it, they don't know you did it. It's just the way the world works. Okay. Number five, I left for number 5 because it doesn't specifically have to do with any phase of flight. It could start all the way from takeoff and go throughout the entire flight, all the way to landing. Number 5 is less of a saying thing and more of a doing thing. And it's so simple to do. Again, as simple as it is to do, that's how simple and easy it is to miss. But it's something that if you do, it shows cleanliness, meaning you're a clean pilot, you're professional, you're neat. It shows really good on your behalf. Again, such a simple thing to do. But if you do it, it's clean, it shows well. It just leaves the DPE with this person's professional. I like it. And if you don't do it, it shows clumsiness. It shows a lack of awareness. It shows almost like I'm all over the place. And that is squaring your heading bug, or making sure that your heading bug is always on top there of the heading that you're flying. What I don't want you to do is, if you're flying along, especially when you're told by your DPE to maintain a certain heading, and to just maintain that heading with the heading bug off to your right on your HSI, or off to your left or behind you. I want you to be clean. Anytime you fly, anytime you take off, square the heading bug. Most glass cockpit planes, you can just press the heading button and it kind of aligns. It puts the heading bug on top. Square the heading bug, especially when you're told to track a heading. First thing we do when you're told the heading is we write it on the airplane. How do you write it on the airplane? You place the heading bug on that heading. You just wrote it on the airplane. Next thing we do is we turn to it and maintain it. Be clean, be professional. This is a habit. If you get into this habit, it literally takes no brain calories to figure out, and it takes a split of a second. But how many of us, we're flying along and the heading bug is just, we're flying on a 130 heading and the heading bug is just on a 278 hanging out, because that's what, it happened to be on when we turned the airplane on. Right? That's not clean. That's clumsiness. I'm not neat. I'm not tight here. So square your heading bug. Square your heading bug. If you've been doing it, if it's been a habit of yours to do. Even if you're tracking a course, by the way, you're maintaining that needle centered. Square the heading bug. Square the heading bug. Especially if you fly a plane with autopilot, it increases safety. Because what if you get distracted and ATC tells you, hey, I know you're tracking this course, but turn left heading 130 for traffic. And you forget your training, and instead of first squaring the heading bug and then switching to heading mode on the autopilot, your heading bug is hanging out on 298, and that's where the traffic is at that ATC wants to keep you clear from, and you just go and press that heading mode button. Guess what the plane will do? It will turn right towards that traffic ATC wants to keep you away from, because it's turning towards that heading bug. So again, square your heading bug. Always be aware of your heading bug. Be clean, be neat. It's a professional move, and it shows really, 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 really well. Again, back to the open house thing. Your Checkride is your open house. Squaring that heading bug, keeping it solid on top there. On any time you take off, square the heading bug. On landing, final, square the heading bug. Make it clean and neat. Your display should be clean. There shouldn't be extra stuff and messages all over the place. Clean. Clean, clean, clean. Goes a really, really long way. I left that one for last because that's just a general thing. You could pretty much do it anywhere. Square your heading bug, and you'd be amazed. Again, it's the small little tiny things that make your Checkride great. That's what the DPE wants to see and loves to see, because they see so little of it, because all these things that we discussed are so simple. They're so simple that they're easy to miss. And because they're easy to miss, they are missed. And when the DPE sees someone do these things, they go, oh, thank you. Finally. I know this person is caught up with flying the plane. I know they're nervous. It's their Checkride, but they remembered to check final. They're squaring their heading bug. They don't have all these different screens and menus and messages on their screen just hanging out. All these things, they're coming into turn. They clear the area, clear left, clear right. They're taking the runway, final is clear. They get a taxi instruction. They make sure that they could read the taxi stuff. All these things are so tiny and simple, but they make you look so great and professional and safe and just a pilot who's serious about this, and not just someone who's like, okay, let's get this over with. So that's pretty much the goal of this video, these 5 things. I hope you wrote them down. What I hope more than you writing them down is that you take it to heart. And if you have, here's the thing, if you're watching this video, if you have been doing these 5 things on your flights, more power to you, more power to your instructor. On your next time you meet your instructor, what I want you to do is say, listen, I know flight training is all over the place, the standards, the instructors, the whole thing, but I just want to thank you. Maybe bring them a donut. You tell them, I want to thank you. Tell them I watched this video online, and that person was talking about 5 simple things I could do and should do on my Checkride, which really go a long way. And I want to thank you, because as I was watching that video, I realized that you've been holding me to all those standards all along. And I want to thank you for believing in me and valuing me enough to make me do these things, and not just letting me get away with taxiing with no chart up and all these different things. So thank your instructor if you've been doing it. Now, if you haven't been doing it, or you haven't been doing all of them, I want you to take it to heart and start implementing these things every time you go fly. By the way, all these things we discussed are things that in every single one of your flights will involve these things. You know, traffic alerts, I have a hard time believing you'll have a flight with no traffic alert, especially in this day and age if you're training in a busy area. But you might not have that one. Other than that one, every single flight, again, if you're training out of a non-towered airport, you might not have the taxi instructions. But every single flight, whatever stuff that I discussed that do apply to you, I want you to take it on and include that in the way you fly an airplane. And very quickly, it will become a habit. And on your Checkride, when you do these 5 things, and again, like I said before, there's 100 things we could do. There's 100 small things that make DPEs feel great. 100 things. But I really want to keep this simple. Things that are simple and easy to implement. None of these things take more than 2 seconds if you think about it. But it really makes your open house. On that open house day, it really makes you look good, and because you are good. If you do these things and you don't just do it for the Checkride, but you really take it to heart and you make this part of how you fly a plane, you are a safer pilot by that. You never know. You might be turning final or about to turn final one day and then looking to your right and there's a plane. And you'll remember, oh, this is a great habit. You never know. You really never know. Or you might be taxiing, about to make a turn, and you'll look to your left and go, ooh, there's a plane taxiing. And you just didn't run into each other. You really, really, really never know. So I hope these 5 things resonate with you. I hope they hit home. I hope you're able to recognize how simple and powerful they are, that they're not intimidating to take on. Just implement them, make them happen, make them part of your next flight. And like I said before, I mean it. If your instructor has been holding you to these things, thank them, because not all instructors do. Thank your instructor. Tell them, thank you for holding me to these standards, even though it may have been annoying in the beginning. Even though it's been weird and all this is new to you, but your instructor believes in you enough, and they recognize that you are valuable enough and matter enough to be this safe when you fly an airplane. So thank them. And that's it. These are the 5 things that really earn you brownie points and will make a big, giant, subtle, quiet, but very powerful difference on your check ride. Take care, you guys. Fly safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.